90% of people chase money the same way and fail the same way. If saving feels difficult even with discipline, this problem links to psychology, not math. If money advice worked, most people would feel secure. They do not. The psychology of money explains why logic fails with money and why personal history shapes every decision. Give me 11 minutes and you will never look at risk, luck, or wealth the same way again.
Most people believe that doing well with money is about what you know. They think it's about spreadsheets, complex formulas, and keeping a hawk eye on the stock market. But I'm going to tell you something that might be hard to hear. Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill. It's about how you behave. And behavior is incredibly hard to teach, even to really smart people. Think about it. We've all seen the genius who loses everything in a market crash because they couldn't control their greed. And we've seen the janitor, someone like Ronald Read, who lived a quiet life, saved a little every month, and died with $8 million in the bank. How does that happen? It happens because money isn't just math, it's psychology. It's the story you tell yourself at 2 a.m. when you're worried about your future. In the next 20 minutes, we aren't just going to summarize a book. We're going to dismantle the way you think about wealth, greed, and happiness. By the end of this, you won't just understand the psychology of money. You will understand why your brain is biologically programmed to keep you broke and how to rewrite that script. Because the most dangerous thing you can do with money is to think you're being rational. Let's start with a foundational truth. No one is crazy. You might look at someone buying a lottery ticket and think they're a fool. You might look at a billionaire taking a massive risk and think they're insane. But people from different generations, raised by different parents who earned different incomes and held different values, learn very different lessons. Your personal experience with money makes up maybe 0.0000001% of what's happened in the world, but maybe 80% of how you think the world works. If you grew up when inflation was high, you have a different view of bonds than someone who grew up when prices were stable. If you grew up in poverty, a risk feels like a death sentence. If you grew up wealthy, risk feels like a game. The problem is that we all think we know how the world works, but we're all just looking through a tiny, distorted lens. When you struggle with discipline, it's often not because you're lazy, it's because your internal money map is trying to protect you based on a reality that might not even exist anymore. To solve the problem of inconsistency, you first have to acknowledge that your financial decisions aren't made in a vacuum. They are emotional reactions to your past. Once you realize that no one is crazy, you stop judging your failures and start analyzing your patterns. That is the first step toward freedom. Now let's talk about the two things we hate to admit: luck and risk. They are siblings. They are the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. Bill Gates went to one of the only high schools in the world that had a computer in 1968. That is luck. He also worked incredibly hard. That is effort. You cannot have one without the other. But here is where the psychology gets tricky. When we succeed, we credit our skill. When we fail, we blame bad luck. And when we see others fail, we tell ourselves they were reckless. If you're watching this and you're struggling with productivity, you're feeling like you're behind in life, I want you to listen closely. Nothing is as good or as bad as it seems. The danger of ignoring luck is that you try to emulate success stories that were actually luck stories. You try to copy a billionaire's morning routine, thinking that was the secret sauce, when the secret sauce was a 1 in a million market timing event. So what's the solution? Focus less on specific individuals and more on broad patterns. Don't look at the one person who won big on a single stock. Look at the millions who stayed consistent for 30 years. Success leaves clues, but extreme success usually leaves a trail of luck that you cannot replicate. Build a room for error into your life. Assume that the world is more volatile than you think, because the only way to win the game of money is to stay in the game long enough for the math to work in your favor. Why is it that people who have enough keep risking it all for more? It's the hardest financial skill in existence, getting the goalpost to stop moving. Modern capitalism is a pro at two things: generating wealth and generating envy. Social comparison is a ceiling that you can never touch. If you're a mid-level manager, you envy the CEO. The CEO envies the guy with the private jet. The guy with the jet envies the guy with the yacht. There is no winning that game. The only way to win is to realize that you have enough, even if it's less than those around you. Enough doesn't mean you stop growing. It means you stop doing things you'll regret just to fill a void that can't be filled. Think about the high-profile scandals, the Bernie Madoffs of the world. These were people who already had hundreds of millions. They had everything a human could ever need, but they lacked the psychology of enough. They risked what they had and needed for what they didn't have and didn't need. For those of you between 18 and 34, the pressure to be someone is crushing. But realize this: happiness is just results minus expectations. If you keep raising your expectations every time you get a raise, you will be perpetually poor, no matter how much is in your bank account. Now let's talk about the most powerful force in the universe: compounding. Warren Buffett is one of the richest men alive. But did you know that $81.5 billion of his $84.5 billion net worth came after his 65th birthday? Our brains are not evolved to understand exponential growth. We think linearly. If I tell you to add 8 plus 8 plus 8, you can do it. If I tell you to multiply 8 by 8 by 8 9 times, your brain breaks. The secret to wealth isn't high returns, it's consistent returns over a long period. This is the problem-solving loop for your lack of discipline. You're looking for a big win. You're looking for the 10x return. But the big win is actually 1,000 small, boring wins stacked on top of each other. Good investing isn't about making the best decisions. It's about consistently not screwing up. It's about being survivable.
If you can stay in the market for 30 years without ever having a catastrophic moment where you're forced to sell, you will be wealthier than 99% of the people who tried to beat the market. Time is the force multiplier, but time requires patience, and patience is a psychological battle against your own ego. We live in a world that confuses spending money with having wealth. When you see someone driving a $200,000 car, you only know one thing about their wealth. They have $200,000 less than they did before they bought the car. Wealth is the cars not purchased, the diamonds not bought, the watches not worn. Wealth is the financial assets that haven't yet been converted into the stuff you see. This is a massive psychological hurdle. We use outward appearances to judge success because that's all we can see. But true wealth is options. It's flexibility. It's the ability to wake up in the morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. If you spend money to show people how much money you have, that is the quickest way to have less money. The man in the car paradox is simple. You think that if you buy a fancy car, people will admire you, but they don't. They don't even look at you. They are imagining themselves in the car. Stop trying to buy respect. Respect is earned through character, not through your debt-to-income ratio. Save money. Not for a house, not for a car. Just save it for a rainy day that doesn't have a name yet. Because in a world that is increasingly volatile, hidden wealth is the only thing that gives you the power to pivot when life gets hard. Nothing is free. Not even market returns. Most people see a market dip as a fine or a punishment. They think they did something wrong. But a wise investor sees it as a fee. If you go to Disneyland, you pay a ticket price. You don't view the ticket price as a penalty. You view it as the cost of admission for the ride. Success in anything, money, productivity, career, has a price. And that price isn't always measured in dollars. It's measured in uncertainty, fear, regret, and boredom. If you can't handle the fee of uncertainty, you will never get the reward of returns. The problem with most people struggling with consistency is that they are trying to find a way to get the reward without paying the price. They want the gains without the volatility. But the volatility is the price. Embrace it. When the market drops, don't see it as a loss. See it as a bill you're paying to stay on the ride. At the end of the day, the psychology of money comes down to one thing: control. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. It's not about luxury, it's about autonomy. You've spent your life thinking that the problem was that you didn't have enough information. But as we've seen, the janitor can beat the genius if the janitor has the right behavior. The ghost in your financial ledger isn't a lack of math, it's your own ego. It's your fear of what the neighbors think. It's your inability to wait. If you want to change your life, stop looking at your bank account and start looking in the mirror, because the person looking back at you is the only one who can decide if the goalposts stop moving or if you'll spend your whole life running a race that has no finish line. But here is the truth. Understanding the psychology of money is only half the battle. You can have all the wealth in the world, but if your mind is still programmed for scarcity and survival, you will still feel poor. There is a deeper layer to this, a biological glitch in the human brain that makes us crave the very things that destroy us. If you're ready to see how that glitch is currently sabotaging your productivity and your peace of mind, you need to watch my next video. We're going to dive into the dopamine trap, the psychological mechanism that keeps you chasing more while losing everything. I'll see you there. If money decisions feel confusing, stay until the end. These ideas reshape daily choices, risk thinking, and long-term behavior. After finishing, move straight to Rich Dad, Poor Dad on this channel. Both stories connect mindset with action, and together they build a clearer view of income, assets, and personal responsibility.